What's up everybody? Welcome back to 0 Mile ADV. Today we are on a beautiful ride, if you can kind of see back up in this way, near the Colorado National Monument. And I want to take a stop and just talk about my first group ride experience with a bunch of Harley Davidson owners versus my first group ride experience with ADV riders. So with that, let's get into it. Today we were talking about my experience on my first Harley Davidson group ride versus my first ADV ride and some of the key differences there. If you haven't seen my other video about the ADV ride, you may want to go back and check that one out, my first experience there. And I'm going to talk about some differences here. Key caveat that I think is probably pretty important that plays into this story is that on the Harley ride, I did know two people kind of well. Like I wouldn't say like they're my friends, but like at least I knew them and had a little bit more of a relationship there than the guys that invited me on the ADV ride. So that probably plays into it. I will definitely lean into that knowing that that probably helped, but I still think there's some key differences that we should talk about. In my ADV ride video, my biggest problem with that was that I was brand new, and as this channel is mostly for new riders and what it's like to learn how to ride a motorcycle and get into motorcycling culture. The thing with the ADV ride is that I felt like an inconvenience to the group, and it was kind of made clear, right? When we left the parking lot, the leaders of the group rode at about 100 miles an hour. It was supposed to be a super, and again, this goes back, and so all you trolls on my other video on the ADV ride, just to recap, I did check with the group multiple times, like, hey, I'm new, I'm a beginner, is it okay for me to join on this? And it was like, yes, this is a beginner friendly ride, you should definitely come and have fun, it'll be great, come out and ride with us. Definitely wasn't the case. As I talked about, ended up riding probably at least half the ride by myself and all the way back home. Harley ride on the other hand, and you know, and I think with the Harley culture is you see the black leather, you see all the patches, even if you're like not a part of like a motorcycle club, like I think that has like bled over into just like your everyday weekend warrior. They love like the patches, and it's just like patches of places they've been, not necessarily because they're in some sort of like motorcycle club, but you see the black leather, the mohawks, the whatever, you know, just kind of like that bad boy look. And I would get the impression that it might be the same kind of thing, right? Like everybody's got something to prove, who can go fastest, who can rip the corners the best, who can make their bike the loudest. There is definitely that aspect of group rides, and I will talk about that in the Harley scene as well. I will talk about that. But on my first ride, it was about 12 bikes. We met up at the local dealership, and then we went from basically Grand Junction up over the Grand Mesa. If you've never done that, fantastic ride, through Delta and up over the backside. Now, I will say, the leader of the group was very open and everybody teases him about him riding his motorcycle a bit crazy. Everything I go against. If you've seen my other videos about why I think it's okay to buy a leader bike, it's because you're going to ride within the laws, you're going to ride within your limits, and you're going to do things the right way, not hurt yourself and not hurt anybody else, right? This guy seems to be, he's open about the craziness of how he rides his bike. But as the leader of the group, he still rode a very nice pace within the speed limit, you know, give or take, right? First rule climbing, never admit climbing. So let's just say we never went too fast, right? We never would have gotten pulled over. And this is even for somebody who rides a bit wild, and they openly admit it. As the leader of the group and leading about 12 bikes, yeah, he did a fantastic job. He worked hard to make sure the group stayed together. So as we were cruising through town, he would kind of slow the pace up if a few riders got left behind. So, and pause for truck to pass. Truck passing now, and we're good. And which was far different. In the other group ride, it was like the ADV ride, it's like, hey, here's where we're gonna meet, we'll see you there, right? And it was kind of like, okay, see you there. So you didn't get that cool experience of like being in a pack of motorcycles and like cruising down the road together, which I definitely got on the Harley ride, so which was a completely different vibe. And also there was a sweep rider at the back making sure that it kept everybody together. I saw a lot of the comments on the ADV ride and people talked about that a lot, like, well, there should have been a leader and there should have been a sweeper to keep everybody together. And I've also seen the comments of like, oh, well, you know, on every group ride, everybody's expected to have a certain level of experience. But when you talk to the leaders and you tell them you're new and you want to make sure that it's okay for you to join, and you're like, hey, you know I'm new because you just sold me my bike. Is it cool for me to come? And they tell you yes, yes, yes. And then you get left behind, and then they're pushing the pace and things that aren't comfortable for you and trying to go places that aren't good for beginners. Just a terrible experience. However, with this ride, the Harley ride, no dirt. So it adds, definitely makes it a bit easier, right? Because it's just pavement everywhere. But still, we're going up over the mesa on some twisty roads. Maybe people aren't quite comfortable with that, but the group worked really hard. The leader worked really hard to keep everybody together. At the stops, we pulled together. They checked in on everybody. How's everybody doing? How's everybody feeling? Was the pace okay for everybody? You know, are we doing all right to keep everybody together? It just felt far more inclusive for every rider type. So, I will also say this. The Harley Ride group, you don't have to have a Harley to ride with them. So they are very open about like, come bring anything. Bring your ADV bike, bring your crotch rocket. We don't care, just come out and ride with us. So if you haven't done a group ride and you're looking, there are local things called Harley owners groups, and it's small groups of people that own Harleys to get together and ride, usually based around the dealership that's closest to you. Look up your local Harley's owner group, see if you can get on a ride with them. Bring your ADV bike. At least in my experience, they won't care. They just want you to be there. Just say, hey, I want to get some group riding experience, and they'd be more than happy to have you there. The other thing is that the ride was supposed to end at a lunch spot in this little town of Mesa. But because everybody kind of finished up at the same time, again, the leaders of the ride worked really hard to be like, hey, let's all ride back to town together, and then we can split off and, you know, go our separate ways once we get back into town. So I will just say my first Harley group ride versus my first ADV ride were very, very different. The Harley ride far more inclusive, far more open to people who maybe are new and not comfortable with riding yet. And I think it would be a great way, if you haven't done a group ride, to get in. And again, if you're riding an ADV bike, don't be afraid that you're going to show up on a Harley, because again, they don't care. And with that being said, another example of that is I rode in my second bigger ride, which was what's called the Red Rocks River Run, which is about, there are 240 participants, including passengers. So maybe anywhere from 180 to 200 motorcycles that participated in this ride from Grand Junction to Moab, and they weren't all Harleys. So even though this was put on by the Harley dealership, it wasn't all Harleys. There was bikes of all kinds there. There were cruisers, there were Kawasaki's, there were Indians, there were crotch rockets, there were ADV bikes. It was like everything. So if you're looking for a good group ride experience, in my personal opinion, look for your local Harley owners group. Check them out. Let them know that you're new, you're just trying to get better riding experience. In my experience, they'll welcome you with open arms. It'll be a great way to kind of get your feet wet riding with other people. And with that being said, if you've stuck around this long, thank you for sticking around. Leave a comment below. Have you ridden with like a Harley group versus an ADV group? What was your experience? Maybe yours was opposite. Maybe your ADV group was better than mine. Maybe your Harley ride was awful, and maybe it was the complete opposite. So with that being said, leave a comment, subscribe, notify, all the YouTube stuff. And until next time, stay safe out there.